You're listening to the Manscape, a podcast about being a man in today's ever-changing world. I'm Joseph Benish.
And I'm Tim Cox. On this bonus episode, we talk the social change of the Oscars. But first, if you like what you're hearing, tell a friend, share this episode, leave us a kind review, and don't forget to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, all the social channels at the Manscape Pod. If you feel like reaching out, we'd love to hear from you. You can email us at themanscapepod@gmail.com. Joseph.
This idea, we wanted to be responsive to the world. And even though, a little secret podcast stuff, and we're recording a few episodes before we launch them because you want to have a few in the can. So it'll be a couple weeks from now when we're recording this, because the Oscars was last night, to when you hear this. But at the Oscars, Ke Huy Quan, I hope I said that right, won Best Oscar for... Ke Huy Quan, thank you. Ke Huy Quan won Best Oscar for Supporting Actor in Everything Everywhere All at Once. Data and Short Round, and of course that movie went on to dominate the night. But this great actor from our childhood, who intentionally stopped acting for more than a couple decades because he was like, there wasn't any good roles for Asians out there. So, social change at the Oscars, our episode title, and I have some notes on that. Yeah. But Tim, what did this make you think of when we saw Michelle and him?
I first of all, in our podcast, The Final Take, we reviewed this in depth, devoted an entire episode to this, and this was a fantastic film. And I don't get me wrong, I saw Top Gun 2 twice in the movie theater, but I don't think any other film touched this last year in the 2022 cinematic year. No other film touched this. They did in one film what Marvel spent a decade trying to start, just ignite. But the thing is that it was a very subtle film when you break it all down. You take all the the multiverse out of it. It is a very stereotypical Asian family story, and I say that as someone who married into an Asian family, and they really did a fantastic job of this. And what a comeback story for Ke Huy Quan. The last time I saw him, he did they got as adults, the entire cast of the Goonies back together to do the DVD commentary. And it was at the time that Sean Astin was filming Lord of the Rings. He was doing some pickup shots on Lord of the Rings. And Ke Huy Quan joined. He did some work on some films behind the scenes during his time, but he actually just completely quit acting. And he's a very unique guy. I mean, and it's good to see this Cinderella story, in real time, just to see him just explode. I mean, first of all, his performance was incredible, without question. He's just fully deserved that Oscar. But to see him, evolve over the course of the year, back into the industry, I just hope there's some really great roles for him, and he just continues to just be a force in the acting world, because he is extremely talented.
Yeah. And others. And I might be sort of hitting it on the nose with this one, but a few years ago we had Oscars so white, and commenting on the lack of diversity, to use a word, and that might ruffle people's feathers. There is a segment of our population out there that's worried about things getting too woke. But I did a really quick search. People, just do your own research. Here's what I did. I went on IMDb and I pulled up, actually Googled, top 100 greatest movies of all time. And it has this list of IMDb rated movies. So that's, collectively rated movies from all over the world. And in those 100 movies from the past, probably almost 100 years, because I know I saw James Stewart in there a bunch of times. Top 100 movies, not one single Asian lead actor. Not one. And it's like, so were there no Asian actors in the last 100 years? And why not?
Wait, was Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon on it?
I don't remember that being on that list. It is possible I skimmed past it, but because I went through it kind of fast, but I'm pretty sure it wasn't because I was looking. What one of the movies that stood out was Chinatown. I was like, oh, oh no, it's starring Jack Nicholson. Yeah, and then the other one that caught my eye was Jurassic Park. Great movie, and I was like, oh yeah, there's an Asian dude in that. What does he play? Like, yeah, he was the scientist. So, um, as with all things, we've come a long way. We still got a long way to go. But it made me think, that we had Michelle win for Best Actress and him win for Best Supporting Actor. And I love that it's progress. And even more important than the fact that they happen to be Asian actors, those were just great performances. And like you said, the movie was actually very subtle. As much as I love Marvel movies, you're right. They spent a decade trying to get to what they did in one movie. So it was a heck of a ride. I loved the movie. I love the performances. And also, like, shout out to Jamie Lee Curtis. This might be off topic. Been around a long time. And, from Slasher Girl, nope. But I loved her character. Like, she was kind of putting it out there, like, literally, like wearing tight fitting clothing, representing, middle-aged person like us now. And you just gotta love it.
Yeah. Chip on her shoulder. Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. It's interesting you mentioned the Oscar so white kind of thing because I was thinking about that as well, because it was like the social change. I mean, and that's, you went and got a master's degree in theater for social change, and I took some classes when we were both going to ASU on theater for social change and stuff like that. And I was looking at it and I was thinking, wow, when it comes to Hollywood, I was thinking, wow, you just don't really see a lot of diversity in the film. But and I was thinking, well, the where the diversity is, there's no nominations, and I'm trying to walk a fine line on saying this. I'm not saying that they don't deserve to be nominated, but the films that deserve to be nominated, nobody's ever heard of, and it's not even a blip on the radar screen. Because when you think about it, like Korean cinema, Asian cinema, like Americans have been ripping off Asian cinema for at least the last 20 years. And you've got, like, especially Koreans, the stuff that they've been doing, like Train to Busan, and finally they get their due with Parasite. And it's such a fantastic film, but if Parasite hadn't been recognized, you bet that would have turned into a white Hollywood film, where probably would have won Best Picture, but thankfully, it got its due. But when you really think about, like, the hashtag Oscar so white, there's just not opportunity for diversity in critically acclaimed films to be made. When you think about it, you don't have a film that's like The English Patient that is a cultural story of some other type of community, some other country, or any type of thing that would fit into something that would be some type of epic independent film that would just ravage all of the awards across the board, like something like The English Patient or anything like that.
I feel like I think that's true, but my opinion on that is that I think a lot of people got it wrong, especially in Hollywood, thinking that those movies wouldn't sell, so they weren't putting the resources behind it. And like Black Panther showed us that was all false because we had not had, with the exception of Spawn. It was Spawn like late '80s, early '90s. I can't think of another black superhero because it was the thought we were like literally holding ourselves back in the arts. that a black movie, a black actor led movie wouldn't sell. Of course, Black Panther blows us out of the water. You've got Denzel Washington, Samuel L. Jackson, Will Smith, hanging around on, and a lot of other black actors, people that can hold up, what they call tentpole movies. And I just think we didn't put the resources behind them because, like, one of my favorite series is The Equalizer. Love Denzel Washington being a badass. I love all his parts. But I felt like it was that sort of that risk, that fear, like, oh, these aren't going to make us millions or billions of dollars, and I feel like that has been like proved false.
A film franchise, like The Equalizer, is probably somewhere on a par of Death Wish for the Death Wish remake for Bruce Willis when they remade that for him, the Charles Bronson films. Yeah. But those things aren't going to win awards, But what I'm saying is that no one's going to put their money behind films that are going to be critically acclaimed, that are just going to be plain amazing. What was the 3 billboards outside of wherever the hell? Something like that. Yeah, and they're not gonna get funding for these things. They're gonna be like, nobody cares about that kind of stuff, and it's not likely that a film, you got a film like The Help or Steven Spielberg, who we talked about, doing The Color Purple, which I love. The Color Purple. I've seen it dozens of times. It's just such a great film to watch. But those are helmed by white filmmakers, and white writers adapting books and those kinds of things. It's not truly an effort for the black community, the Asian community, like them putting that forward to get these projects done. So it's in a way, it's still kind of seen through the eyes of #Oscars So White. But and I think it's a shame because there's still, I'm sure there's a lot of great filmmakers out there that just I think there's a million filmmakers that have done like something like Everything Everywhere All at Once. They just aren't getting their time because they're not putting forth a bankable thing.
Wait, are they not putting forth a bankable thing, or are we not ready? Are we not ready as a society, mainstream Hollywood, to bet on that as a bankable thing?
Yeah. It's not viewed as bankable, I would say, more than anything else. Yeah. It's and here's a quick thing. A friend who worked for Creative Artists Agency, as the joke goes, got to thank CAA. So she would give me scripts of films that were hot, that were not yet produced. I read a lot of scripts. There was one in particular, is a film called The Grackle. And this was a film that was going to star Matthew McConaughey, and it was going to be directed by David O. Russell. And it was essentially about, not an Oscar-winning film by any stretch, just an example of what gets made. But it was essentially Matthew McConaughey took $250 and was an ass whooping for hire. Essentially, he was just this chain smoking, beer drinking dude who, just a low life guy who just, you could just pay him $250 and he'll whip somebody's ass, right? And total comedy. He ended up, he was physically preparing for the role and he broke a rib, and because he had to recover from that, he wasn't able to do the role, and he ran into his next project and he dropped out, and it went into turnaround and never got made because the actor who was the name actor to sell the film was not going to be part of the film. So I think in a lot of cases, I really think probably Jamie Lee Curtis and Michelle Yeoh really, were essentially the names to get, I think it was A24 who produced it, for them to throw their money behind it. Yeah. And so they still had some bankable stars, Ki Kwan's return. it's one of those things where everything was in the right place at the right time to be able to do that. And it's really you gotta like have some lightning strike twice to basically get these films made. And I think that's one of the biggest problems as to why there's such a rejection of multicultural films in Hollywood. You know, if it's not something that somebody could read a script and basically say, it'll sell, we'll make some money off of this, you know, because it's also about money, you know, and who's gonna.
Yeah, that's why I was saying I don't think it's people willing to place those bets, even though we know they can be good bets. You know, Hidden Figures I've been thinking about while we're
you know what?
talking
I downloaded that and I still haven't watched that, and I've been wanting to watch it. I love Tiffany Haddish. She's just hilarious. I mean, she was in something that I just watched, which I thought was a fantastic film. The Nicolas Cage thing. She just pops up randomly and everything. The massive talent. Yeah, Pedro Pascal. Oh my God, that was such a great film. It was. I actually just finally watched it the other day. But yeah, and I definitely think that there's just the opportunity to make these films. You have the actors, you have the filmmakers, they just are not getting the money to back them. And that's where we're at, you know?
Agreed. All right, well, I want to keep this short. This is something, again, new that we want to do to respond to current events. So this has been a short round. I would like to, this has been a short round. So from the Manscape podcast. Any closing thoughts?
Ki Kwan, yes, who we affectionately know as Short Round. So our bonus episodes are now short rounds. All right.
With that, we're out.